All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Gonna be touching on all the top prop bets that we have today on both PrizePicks and Underdog for all the varies. We got a bunch here, some decent edges, and I just wanted to kind of touch on all those for you guys so we can make the best bet slips possible. So let's go ahead and just take a peek at the best prop bets that we are currently getting on PrizePicks. This is going to be taking a peek at the EV only, where the average sportsbook line for the most part is going to match up with the PrizePicks or Underdog line. So right now, obviously looking at PrizePicks, and I say for the most part because the golf rating that we have in there is slightly different. The formula for that slightly different. I just added that in there yesterday. It's a work in progress, but I want to point this out to you guys that yesterday Patrick Cantlay was at about a 57 for his edge to get that over, and I believe Max Homa was at about a 55. The course played more difficult yesterday than expected in terms of birdies made. So because of that, the edge went down, even though for the most part, the data points didn't change. That was the biggest data point that changed: how many birdies the player made, and then how many birdies were made on the course. Just as an FYI, I know I'm probably talking over the head of a lot of people there, but that's what goes into that. So yesterday, Patrick Cantlay missed out on his by one birdie. Very close there. Probably could have, should have had gone the over. There's some putts there that he let get away. And then looking at Max Homa, he did get his over by one there. It's 6.5 birdies is a lot. It's going to be a sweat up until the last hole, especially with the last hole being a par 5, just as an FYI. Par 5s are birdie holes for people that are not familiar with golf. From there, we see James Cook for under 14.5 rushing attempts is the next best one. But I want to point out to you guys that literally right there is where the good EV bets end on the day, EV-wise. So, you know, we're going to have some pretty good edge bets, and I'll show you guys that. So if you want to just look at edge only, it's a little bit different of a formula because we have stuff like fantasy score that we're tossing in there. So slightly different there. I'll touch on all those best bets that we have as well. But let's take a peek at Underdog. And so looking at there, guys, a little bit better, not even that much better. We still have 3 decent bets that we could be rolling with. Siakam for over 6.5 rebounds. That's a good EV bet currently. We got Reed Jr. college basketball for under 6.5 rebounds, and then Gabe Davis for over 2.5 receptions. So in this regard, it's a very limited slate, but we are getting some pretty good fantasy score props. So let's go ahead and touch on that. And so yesterday we had a pretty big edge looking at college basketball props. The edge actually came with the Underdog props being populated in there pretty much at the end of the video. Honestly, guys, if it was a minute later that Underdog came out with that, I would not have been able to get those props out. That's kind of the tough part about giving out props content. It's very much time dictates a lot of the slates in terms of the content I can give out to you guys. So like Underdog right now, they don't have any fantasy score props out just yet. And so we have nothing to compare it against. And so I'd like to do that because like yesterday, we saw that we were getting a massive edge yesterday. It ended up being a slate in which we knew that we should be targeting it heavily, especially college basketball wise. So right now we were getting 2 pretty good prop bets. I like the fact that both data points that we have right now, the average sportsbook line and then the projection data, both suggest that the PrizePicks line is over. And, you know, even at the natural line of the average sportsbook line, both data points are suggesting that the under would be the way to go. So I like that. We'll take a peek at both of these. So Dawson Garcia going against Maryland, we can see for the most part, yeah, been pretty hit or miss. So seemingly that does seem to be a pretty good one. Pull them up here on DraftKings for you guys. So we see that game against Nebraska, 6 minutes only. I'm guessing that he got injured in that game. So probably just write that one off that he got the under there. Don't really care about that one. And then from there, 28 minutes, that game was a blowout. So it kind of makes sense why he didn't get his over. The game against UNO, also a blowout. So he didn't get his over there. So, you know, we dial it down a little bit more. We can see kind of 2 of the last games that he has gotten his over have been games in which stay close. So what I want to do is I want to take a peek at what this game is projected to do. And so looking at this game is projected to stay close. So, you know, all in all, when I'm looking at the line that we are getting for that one, I might say it's probably closer to being 54% likely to hit. I'm not going to doubt the data that much, but all in all, maybe give it a slight bump. Let's look at Bo here as well. So same stuff, where, you know, the data points are both suggesting that the under is the correct bet here. While I have this screen pulled up, we'll just take a peek at that game. 3-point spread, 135.5 is going to be the over and under. Now, this is going to be kind of a more difficult matchup for Bo going against Michigan State. And so we can see kind of looking at his game log here, that's been pretty much hit or miss, it seems like. And so I'll pull it up on PrizePicks. And part of the reason why I typically don't like to pull it up on PrizePicks first is simply because they don't always have all the games listed in there. It's just an annoyance that they do. And I'm actually curious, Illinois, was that really his last game? It was. Okay, so they got that right. So looking at, guys, we can see 3 out of the past 5 games he has gotten the under. Overall, this is a fine bet. Overall, I'm pretty good with both of those two. So that's kind of it for college basketball right now. I'll take a peek at Underdog, seeing if we're getting any good ones there. But all in all, I think that's going to be it, simply because we're not getting any fantasy score props. We can see this one's being valued as a push. We have that read prop there. All in all, that's okay. Harris Smith here for under points. We can see PrizePicks has bumped that down to 8. The projection data likes him at 6.7. So all in all, a decent one there as well. But all in all, that feels like we'd be forcing it. So let's go ahead and jump into NBA here real quick. So yeah, looking at the top prop bets that we are currently getting in NBA, we got Rudy Gobert for 1.5 turnovers for the under there. Interesting. We got Jared Allen for over 12 or under 12.5 rebounds there. We can see the projection data kind of agrees with both of those. We are seeing though that we're not really getting a big edge with either of these. Cameron Johnson over 2.5 threes is seemingly a good one. I'm actually kind of fine with that one. I could definitely see myself rolling that one out. From there though, the board does seem to be a little bit tight. And I do just want to take a peek at the board in general today. So it does seem like we are getting a lot of potential injury concerns there. So Zach Collins still out for the Spurs. That means, Wemby is still going to be a strong, 2x point per minute type player, meaning if he gets 20 minutes, and this is more for fantasy score, but you can expect him to get 40 fantasy score or so. It's not exactly that high, but with Zach Collins out, he has been a strong producer. Cleveland, they're still without Evan Mobley. They're still without Darius Garland. Honestly, I would expect Jared Allen to crush in this game again. He crushed against Washington. That game was a blowout. He didn't get his full 11 minutes. I expect him to crush in that game. So all in all, I probably wouldn't want to touch the Jared Allen rebounds ones, but maybe there is a little bit of blowout concern there. So that could be part of the reason as to why. Looking at Orlando, guys, this could be pretty big. So Wagner is already out, okay? And so with Goga potentially sitting as well, that could mean that Wendell Carter, who's currently a game time decision, could get more minutes, but he is also a game time decision. Want to point out that Anthony Black, game time decision, and Markelle Fultz, game time decision. So if we get news that all those players are going to sit, Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony to be two players we'd be looking at, but also if we get news that, and that's because Gary Harris and Joe Ingles are out already, so if Fultz sits, Cole Anthony and also Jalen Suggs are going to get a bunch of run, just as an FYI. But if all those players sits, Mo Wagner is going to be someone we're looking at as a strong fantasy producer. Continuing on, don't really care about the Mavericks right now. Let's see here. Bol being out means that Yusuf Nurk is probably going to get a lot more run in that game. He's been getting a little bit of the backup work for Kevin Durant as well being out, so that could change a little bit if Kevin Durant is active. Gary Trent Jr. being potentially out for Toronto could just mean that RJ Barrett and Quickly are going to get a little bit more run. Then Kuminga being out would just mean that Jackson and also Looney would just get a slight uptick in minutes. So all in all, kind of got that breakdown. Let's see if we're getting any better props. I mean, after doing the breakdown, not really. I mean, it's more, I kind of agree with a lot of the lines that we are getting, except for the Jared Allen one. Let's take a peek at Underdog again. And so Underdog wise, again, really just Pascal Siakam is the one that we are getting there. From there, a couple of other decent ones. Dean Wade is typically at 1.5 threes for his over and under threes made. So if he does get that, probably what the projection data is suggesting. Not a terrible over points. Again, that game could blow up. Maybe gets a little bit of an additional run there in that game. Banchero can have a little bit higher usage rate, again, with all those players potentially sitting. I don't mind the over threes there on Underdog. Also, kind of just feels a little bit too thin. So let's go ahead and get into football. A lot of you guys are probably like, get into the football. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into. So football-wise, yesterday we saw Underdog was actually giving us some very good lines for the Dallas Cowboys, specifically Cooks and Jake Ferguson. And actually, PrizePicks has given us slightly better lines here. So Jake Ferguson for over 9 for a fantasy score is seemingly a good one. And also Cooks, my worry is that they maybe get up too early and then rest their starters. And maybe they, instead of getting like the full game, they don't get as much run. Like they're going to be a little bit conservative, but I doubt it. That is a possibility though. So I wanted to echo that. We are still getting the props that I'm fine ending up on. If you guys watched yesterday's video, you guys will get it. If not, Kyle Pitts and Drake London are two fantasy score props that are popping up PrizePicks wise. And I don't exactly love that. You guys could probably guess why. And then same thing on the other side of the game, we got Sharm for under 8.5 for a fantasy score. Don't feel good about that. And then also Noah Fant. The way I ran that out, it was kind of in the game stack where, maybe Seattle's up early and they're just running the football bunch. Maybe it's more of a Kenneth Walker game. So that to me is where I could logically, all right, the data says we should bet the under fantasy score. How can we make that work? Well, still want to bet the over fantasy points for the Falcons like the data suggests. And so for me, I was looking at that and I'm like, all right, the only way that really makes sense is kind of stacking it together. I don't want to use those individually because to me, that's where it correlates. From there, I do want to talk about Justin Jefferson, Wendell Robinson, Johnny Munn, and then also Romeo Doubs. I feel like these are some pretty good prop bets that we are getting. And it does kind of suck because obviously I'm doing this video probably an hour for most of you guys to watch this. Oh man, they bumped this up a half a point. Yeah, they did. All in all, still a good prop bet, guys. So Justin Jefferson, you got to remember that TJ Hawkinson is going to be out in this game. And so last game, he got all of his production pretty much in the second half of that game with Nick Mullins at the quarterback. And so I kind of teased that a lot of people are giving the refs a lot of gripe for end of game calls. And, you know, personally, I haven't really thought they were bad. I actually think the refs have been pretty good this year. I know it's a hot take for a lot of people, but a lot of people would say the refs need to be investigated for rigging games. And I'm like, the most offensive move that has happened thus far this season in terms of potentially rigging a game is Kevin O'Connell starring Jaron Hall in a must-win game for the Minnesota Vikings last week. That was so egregious. Like, I feel like everyone knew it. The players knew it on the team. The Minnesota fans knew it. The Packers fans that, you know, follow Minnesota Vikings football like me knew it. It was just like, what are you doing, dude? So that was a head scratch. That's my long way of saying that Nick Mullins is going to throw the football a lot. That's the reason he's starting, because he is much more of a passer. If they won a quarterback that could rush the football, they'd be starting Joshua Dobbs. And personally, I would have done that last Packers. But all in all, Justin Jefferson is going to get a lot of targets, get a lot of production. And it's against the Detroit Lions defense that hasn't been that good. Detroit doesn't have too much to play for. Their playoff spot is basically solidified. You know, they already won the division and whatnot, so they're going to be good to go. And then I also want to pull up Johnny Munn there. So he was someone that I really was kicking myself for last week for not being on it more, simply because he is someone that did pop during the preseason. A lot of you guys know this by now. Preseason NFL DFS is just such a sweet spot. It's easily the most profitable season that there is in any sport. Maybe besides, no. Like at the end of the NBA season, there's typically a big edge there as well. But no, preseason DFS is pretty huge. He was someone that kept popping up preseason during the reports and whatnot, played pretty well during the preseason. The Vikings seemed to love him. And so I was kicking myself for just not being on that last week. It does make sense to be on him this week as well. Decent matchup going against the Detroit Lions as well. Like, he should be able to have a good game. He's not TJ Hawkinson, but he did fill in for that role pretty well. I personally thought it was actually going to be KJ Osborne that was going to have a good game, being used a little bit over the middle. And then, yeah, right when I saw Johnny Munn get work, I'm like, oh yeah, they have him. And so I would be fine betting that again, or betting this today. And then the last one, or we got two more, Wendell Robinson and Romeo Doubs. So the reason why I like Robinson is he has been playing a little bit more, and he is their pass catcher. Like, we know that, right? And then he also gets a quarterback upgrade this week. It's kind of funny the amount of hype that Tommy DeVito got for literally making one freaking throw in the NFL, which was an awesome throw against my Packers as well. Kind of a clutch throw, but all in all, that's literally the one play he's made. Sure, he scrambled a little bit, but it's kind of crazy that he got that much hype simply from one freaking throw. That was a head scratcher. Tyrod Taylor, and don't get me wrong, I was hyping up Tommy DeVito, saying he wasn't as bad as people thought, which was true. But no, Tyrod Taylor is definitely the better quarterback of. And so I would expect Taylor to have a good game as well. But this is such a good matchup going against Philly. And so I actually don't mind the idea of stacking those two together. But again, Wendell Robinson's been more involved in the passing game, especially with Tyrod Taylor. We can see, you know, over the past 4 games, 7, 7, and 9 targets, been very consistent as a fantasy producer. I don't expect him to score a touchdown, but getting 8 fantasy score in this matchup does seem to be pretty good. And then from there, we are getting some more, you know, pretty good prop bets. Again, you know, James Cook for under 14.5 rushing attempts is a pretty good one. Weirdly, his fantasy score is kind of the same thing. That's strange. Shaheed, I don't mind for over fantasy score. He was a big letdown last week. He actually cost a bunch of 6 out of 6 slips last week. If you guys followed, you kind of know last week was a pretty good week NFL wise. And it's kind of funny. Someone in the comment section stated that they had been very unlucky in terms of getting 6 for 6 slips. Like, a bunch of them were 5 out of 6 and just random stuff happening. I'm like, yeah, that happened to me throughout the month of November. And I just remember now it happened last week. And then yesterday happened where I'll show you guys the bet slip real quick. It was pretty lucky. And so I'll show you guys the slip here. You know, 6 for 6. I had different variations of this slip out there. Again, yesterday was a day in which it was a very big edge day. I went and attacked it. But this is a good example of, like, this stuff will work itself out. Like, was this lucky to hit? Yeah. Have we been unlucky in other situations where this didn't hit, you know, where this went the other way? Yes, that stuff's going to happen. It's going to work itself out in the long term. I kind of had a spiel yesterday about in prop spending, volume being key, and it's true. So let's go ahead and I'll attempt to give you guys a bet slip for the day. You know, we'll see. It's a little bit tighter than I would like. But yeah, let's go ahead and give it a try. So if you guys are just searching for NFL bets, this is kind of what we could be looking at. Obviously that Dallas game is going to be more of a late night game, as is the New York Giants game. That's huge. And then the Packers game as well. So at least you got 4 good bets there, a little bit longer time for a lot of people that are going to be watching this video. That's pretty nice. And then obviously we got those 2 pretty good college basketball props right now. Again, I want to see what the underdog lines are going to be like for college basketball, assuming that we get those. I know they pulled a lot of them yesterday. They weren't too wrong. It was actually PrizePicks that was wrong. So it's kind of weird to see PrizePicks not adjust their lines and underdog take them off, because like EV wise, percent likelihood wise, it was a PrizePicks day. You were just hedging on underdog given the discrepancy, the big discrepancy that there was. So it's very strange to see underdog actually pull those. And then just real quickly, guys, not going to give an underdog slip. It's just, I don't think there's as big of an edge there today as there was yesterday. Like for example, Jordan Love was at 17 for her fantasy score yesterday. We can see underdog has since bumped that up. And again, this kind of highlights how much better of a prop bet Jake Ferguson is on PrizePicks than he is on underdog. So to me, it's a better PrizePicks day. That's where I'm going to be attacking it. Obviously, once we get the updates for fantasy score for NBA and also college basketball, we can adjust if need be. But all in all, you guys got the best list for PrizePicks. So that is going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching. Let's have a good slate. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell. I tend to try to start the video off if we ever get like massive edges like we got yesterday. Obviously yesterday we got those during the video, so I couldn't do that, but I did just want to call that out. If you guys want access to the 9to5 Sports PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, they are available for just $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cashing.